The little girl's shoe lay abandoned in the middle of the crowded terminal, and for reasons he couldn't explain, Daniel Carter felt his chest tighten the moment he saw it. Airports were full of forgotten things: scarves, tickets, cups of coffee. But this was different. This was small, pink, and scuffed at the toe, like it had been dragged through panic. And then he saw her, barefoot, eyes wide, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one ear torn loose, standing alone as waves of hurried adults rushed past her like she didn't exist. In that instant, Daniel forgot the late flight, the bills waiting at home, and the exhaustion of being a single father, barely holding life together. All he could see was a lost child, and a fear he knew too well reflected in her trembling face. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one small moment can change two lives forever, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that compassion still matters. Daniel had learned to notice fear early, since his wife passed away 3 years ago, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old son and a mountain of grief. Fear had become a daily companion. Fear of not being enough, fear of failing his child, fear of being invisible in a world that didn't slow down for struggling men. He worked nights as a delivery driver, days fixing whatever he could find, and lived with a constant ache in his chest that never fully went away. So when he saw the little girl, he recognized the look immediately. It was the same look his son had worn the night Daniel came home too late and found him crying on the couch, convinced he had been forgotten. The girl couldn't have been more than 5. Her curls were tangled, her cheeks streaked with dried tears, and her small fingers gripped the rabbit so tightly its fabric wrinkled. Daniel approached slowly, crouching to her level, keeping his movements gentle. He didn't want to scare her. Airports were loud and overwhelming, and adults could feel like monsters when you were that small. He offered her the shoe first, holding it out like a peace offering, and watched relief flicker across her face. She nodded when he gestured to it, slipping it back on with shaking hands. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed him closely, as if afraid he might vanish too. Helping her find her mother wasn't simple. Hours passed like molasses. Security announcements echoed overhead, flights came and went, and Daniel missed his own departure without hesitation. He held the girl's hand as they walked from desk to desk, describing her to staff, waiting through long pauses where nothing happened. She finally whispered her name, Lily, and clung to him as if he were the only solid thing in a spinning world. Daniel bought her juice from the last of his cash and wiped her face with napkins, telling her through smiles and gestures that everything would be okay, even though part of him wondered if anyone would ever come. As time stretched on, memories crept in. He remembered holding his son in hospital corridors, promising things he wasn't sure he could keep. He remembered how helpless he had felt then, how small the world became when someone you loved was scared and hurting. Sitting on a plastic bench beside Lily, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. Not the heavy, crushing responsibility of survival, but a quiet certainty that this moment mattered. Eventually, airport staff decided to escort Lily to a private waiting area. Daniel went with her, refusing to leave until she was safe. They sat together under fluorescent lights, Lily leaning against his arm, her breathing finally slowing. She fell asleep there, trusting him without question, and the weight of that trust pressed on Daniel's chest in the most unexpected way. He hadn't felt trusted in years. Life had taught him that people expected him to fail, to fall short, to be disposable, but this child saw him as safety. When the door finally opened hours later, the air in the room shifted. The woman who entered moved with controlled urgency, her posture straight, her clothes elegant even in distress. Security trailed behind her, murmuring apologies. Her face was pale, eyes red-rimmed, but there was power in the way she carried herself, a presence that seemed to bend the space around her. This was no ordinary traveler. This was someone used to command, to influence, to being listened to. The moment her eyes landed on Lily, everything else vanished. She crossed the room in seconds, dropping to her knees, gathering her daughter into her arms, as if afraid she might disappear again. Lily woke crying, clinging to her mother, and Daniel quietly stepped back, suddenly aware of his worn jacket, his calloused hands, the way he didn't belong in this polished world that had just arrived. He expected a quick thank you, maybe a distracted nod. He was already preparing to leave, to figure out how to explain the missed flight and the lost wages to his landlord. But the woman didn't let him go. She turned to him, eyes locking onto his face with startling intensity, as if she were memorizing him. She asked his name, listened carefully as he explained how he found Lily, how he stayed, how he couldn't leave her alone. Her expression shifted from shock to something deeper. Recognition. Daniel had no idea who she was. He didn't know she was Eleanor Whitmore, one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country, a billionaire whose companies touched everything from technology to healthcare. He didn't know that she lived in a world where help was often transactional, kindness usually rehearsed. What she saw in Daniel unsettled her. There was no expectation in his eyes, no attempt to impress, just quiet decency. They talked longer than Daniel expected. Eleanor insisted on hearing every detail, every minute Lily had been alone, every small thing Daniel did to comfort her. As he spoke, he felt strangely exposed, like his simple actions were being weighed on a scale far larger than he understood. When he finally mentioned missing his flight, brushing it off as no big deal, Eleanor's face tightened. She asked about his life, his work, his son. Daniel answered honestly, not realizing that honesty itself was rare currency in her world. What happened next shocked him. Eleanor didn't offer him money, not directly. Instead, she offered him help that went deeper. She explained that her foundation funded educational programs, housing initiatives, and job placements for families in transition. She told him that she believed people who acted with compassion deserved stability, not constant struggle. She asked if he would allow her to help his family, not as charity, but as partnership. Daniel felt overwhelmed. Pride and desperation collided inside him. He had learned to survive without expecting rescue, and trusting someone like Eleanor felt dangerous. But when he thought of his son, of the night spent counting coins and wondering how long he could keep going, something softened. He agreed to meet with her team, still half convinced this was all too surreal to be real. The changes didn't happen overnight, but they were real. Within weeks, Daniel had stable work with benefits, a schedule that allowed him to be home in the evenings. Eleanor's foundation helped secure better housing, not luxury, but safety and dignity. His son thrived in school, no longer weighed down by constant anxiety, and Daniel, for the first time since his wife's death, slept through the night. What stayed with him most, though, wasn't the transformation of his circumstances. It was the moment in the airport, the way a lost child's fear had intersected with his own brokenness and created something unexpectedly beautiful. Eleanor stayed in touch, not as a distant benefactor, but as someone genuinely invested in his family's future. Lily remembered him too. She sent drawings, pictures of rabbits and airplanes, and a man with kind eyes. Daniel often thought about how close he came to walking past that shoe, how easy it would have been to assume someone else would help. Life hadn't been kind to him, and yet kindness had still found its way out of him when it mattered most. That realization changed the way he moved through the world. He became more patient, more open, more willing to believe that goodness could ripple outward in ways you'd never see coming. As this story draws to a close, if it touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive. And before the ending, here's a special request. Comment below and tell us whether you believe small acts of kindness can truly change lives, because your words might inspire someone else to stop, notice, and help when it matters most. Daniel never became famous. He never asked for recognition. But somewhere in a busy airport, a moment of compassion rewrote the trajectory of his life and reminded a powerful woman of something money could never buy. That the greatest impact often begins with simply seeing someone who feels lost and choosing not to walk away.